Hi.
Howdy.
Hello. Welcome.
Well,
We have, this is Skell-The Cobb 37, and today I have with me an old friend, and when I say old, I mean old in spirit, old in knowledge.
At least.
Like if there was an ancient Egyptian god that had a portion of their essence put into human form, it would be this person's roommate. No.
Ugh, they're too young. They're far too young.
Yes. Anyway, hello, Jason. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing pretty good. You may hear cat sounds and stuff, so be prepared.
Okay.
My roommate's cat, so.
Oh, I see. All right, fair enough.
Here, I'll shut the door.
All right. While you get settled in,
I'm settled in. I'm just. I'm in my bubble, so you're up with it.
Okay. So I've been playing D&D since about 1984, I think. And I dare say you've been playing a little bit longer. When did you, let's start by saying, first of all, how's the weather down in Florida today?
Hot. It's like 90-something degrees today.
And
very sunny.
Do you have air conditioning?
Oh, of course I do. I live in a nice apartment. I'm not slumming yet.
Okay. Well, I haven't been down there for many years, so I don't have any idea. But that's good. AC is one of those modern conveniences that the ancient Egyptians didn't have. So.
Well, I have a regulated electric bill, so I can open all the windows and run the AC, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. So.
Interesting. And I have solar panels, so mine isn't necessarily regulated, but it's very low. So good.
Well, I can imagine, yeah, if you do it right. What you need to get is one of those bicycle pedals so you can pedal it while you watch TV and provide electric current to your television.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on That's Incredible back in 1980.
It's not hard to do. It's very simple.
Yes. Would it be... let's see. Obviously, I didn't write anything down. I don't have a prepared script for this interview. But first of all, I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, I love it. This is great. This is very therapeutic for me. Thank you.
Jason used to live up here in Missouri. I'm assuming born and raised in Missouri, or were you born somewhere else?
Missouri, yes. I was born and raised in Festus.
Okay.
And until I moved to Florida, I'd lived in Missouri all that time. So.
And we used to game together. We met in college.
Probably 84 or 85, I think.
Well, I graduated high school in 84 and then started at Jeffco in 85. So
look out.
Somewhere in that time. Uh-oh. What's that cat's name?
This is Abigail. I call her Bobo a lot. She likes to occupy things.
Oh, good.
She might even climb up in my face and sit on my head. She's very lovely.
Well, it's lucky for her you like cats.
I knew she would show up if I did this. I just do it.
So when was your first exposure to role-playing games?
Okay, I remember very distinctly.
Oh, good.
You remember the St. Louis Post-Dispatch newspaper had the
I do.
Had the Sunday, whatever it was, the magazine, the Sunday magazine, and the
correct, yes.
They had an article on Dungeons and Dragons, and this was probably about 1979, I think it was. And I immediately went out and bought the game, and me and my cousin Rodney we were big board gamers and stuff like that. We were already into that, so he jumped into it right off the bat with me. So yeah, me and Rodney started playing Dungeons and Dragons back in 1979. I remember very distinctly. Because I had those dice for years, and by the time they were done, they were round.
Sure.
Horrible, cheap plastic dice. And I
do you remember
cider.
Do you remember the rule set you purchased? Was it just like the red box, or was it the first edition?
The box was light green. I
That's
remember
before my time, so I've
it was
never
like-
played
it was
any
the
editions
first- it was
before
the
first.
It was the first major production of theirs because it was like I said, it was being promoted in the newspaper, and I was like, wow, that sounds like a game. That's something completely different, and that's exactly what it was. It was it was playing make believe and making a game out of it that you rolled dice and stuff. So that was kind of neat. And I had already read Lord of the Rings by the time. I mean, I read Lord of the Rings back when I was in middle school.
I was going to say, about how old were you back in '79, if I may ask?
Well,
Were you in middle school or freshman in high school, maybe?
I was 10. So in '79, I was 15.
So either a freshman or a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, I was probably in junior. No, I was probably in junior high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know Jason, he's a very talented artist. If you would take a second and plug your any kind of social media, if someone wanted to look at your art, where would they go?
I got my page on Facebook. It's just called Demon's Dream. You know what that one is with the artwork. So
Okay.
I'm not really good at self-promotion.
No, that's fine. I mean, there's going to be like 10 people that watch this, so that's fine. That's why I didn't prepare a manifesto of questions.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you just ask me questions, that's the best thing you can do because otherwise, God knows what tangent I'll ramble on.
No, I have a few high points I definitely want to hit. So, but the reason I bring up the art is because when we played, you would draw characters or scenes that either caught your fancy or perhaps I had a request, but I don't remember really requesting so much as you just doing them whenever the mood struck you.
I think you asked me at least once to draw something.
And I still have all those because I found my original CD with the original stuff, so I have quite a few pieces of your art on there, like Gaspar's Tower, the
At the Gates of Dawn. Do you still have that one?
I don't think so.
Remember that was on the wall in the back room there. That was the color stuff I did. I had like the picture of me and Jakara fighting, and then I had the picture of Morgul standing in the gate with his halberd and full armor.
I guess I don't. No, I don't remember that one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That makes me sad because I did try to save everything.
You may have them, you don't know it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I may have taken them. I don't know. That was a long
As
time.
you know, when you move more than once, things tend to get kind of shuffled away.
Moves. Oh, you know how many books I've lost in moves?
Not to mention, you would draw things that I thought were great, and you'd be like, I don't like it, and you just throw it away. I'm like, So that was kind of the way you were.
Cool, because if I drew something and I didn't like it and I wanted to throw it away and they would go in the trash can to get it, I'd be like, leave it alone. If I don't approve of my own artwork, leave it alone.
Yeah. I remember you saying that to me one time, and I was like, man. And then when you weren't around, I went, man. But yeah, so like I have pictures from the old, what I like to call the Second Age of Skell, which I've done a video on the first
Golden
age,
Age,
but I haven't
Golden
touched
Age.
on the Second Age yet. But that's when you and John. We all started
Tony and
gaming.
Kenny and Wendell and
back
Daryl.
what I call the trailer days. And there's a picture of like Morgul going face to face with a beholder, and there's a beholder, and it's just kind of looking at him like they're having a stare off. Yeah, and then you drew some pictures of other characters like Percival and Jakara, but
Jim drew Gaspar once. Do you have that picture?
I have your drawing of Gaspar.
Jim drew me with my umbrella and my hat that he bought me. His character bought me a new hat. I remember that. He drew the picture of the hat.
But that leads me into my next round of questions, which is when we first got together and gamed. I remembered that you and John had a very interesting way of looking at a very interesting point of view on role playing that I didn't necessarily share, but I tried to. I don't know. I tried to let it be, if you will. When you're a young DM, you might not have as much confidence in just letting the chips fall where they may. So I remember that wrangling you and John was like trying as the proverbial sack of cats. It was always, I would set something up and you guys would immediately trash it and go do something else that I had no preparation for. That's my biggest memory.
I think the superhero game was worse.
Now,
Villains Vigilante.
we did play that.
We had a total woo.
Yes, Kent, may he rest in peace. He was like the Jason, John, and Kent were always what I used to call the three amigos, because they would congregate at Jason's house and they would smoke a lot of weed and play a lot of games, and they just enjoyed each other's company, which I was like, man, these guys are just like their own little clique. It was amazing. And sadly, Kent has passed on many years ago. But you told me just the other day that you were in contact with John still, and that he's doing fine. So that's good news.
I talked to John. I try to talk to John regularly because I've known him forever. So.
And he has got. At least I know he had one daughter. I don't know if he had any more kids after her.
He has two daughters.
Two daughters. Okay.
They're almost full grown now.
Yeah.
They're almost adults now.
Yes, I'm a very late starter. So, and then some of us, such as yourself, are looking at your fur baby right there. So that's fine.
Actually, I'm just protecting her for now. I don't really. She is my fur baby, but she's supposed to be somebody else.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Because of the coronavirus, they didn't come and get her yet.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Being kind never goes out of style.
Oh, she's a very well. Her daughter is my cat, so. Her daughter is my cat. So,
so what? This is kind of a broad, open-ended question, but out of those adventures from way back then, could you name or describe a couple of the things that you remember, like specific instances that you either found? We'll start with enjoyable, like where you were like, yeah, this is a lot of fun. Or if you want to approach it from the other direction, I can name the one time where you were really disappointed. And that was the time that the other characters guilted you into sending your hard-earned army of skeletons into the river because they thought it was evil. I mean,
and destroying the plans for the gun.
If you go by the letter of the rules, which a young guy would do, I mean, nowadays
that didn't disappoint me because I knew I could make more.
Well, I mean, this isn't meant to embarrass you, but I know it hurt your feelings at the time. So
that didn't disappoint me. It just I was just like, meh, you conservatives. You know,
kind of. I don't know, and I remember all those skeletons.
I just hope you win the war and you make me throw away my best stuff. Come on.
Do you remember what you had done to many of those skeletons?
How many?
No, you remember what you did. You put a magical enchantment on a bunch of them.
I made a special spell that was called Command Undead.
No, you didn't you stone skin a bunch of them?
Oh yeah,
or am I thinking of somebody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I stone skinned. Yeah, that was my personal guards.
I have no idea. I don't remember if that's even legal, but we did it and it worked. And then it was like, man, we're scared. Get rid of them. And you were begrudgingly, and you did it. And it's like, God damn. So
I'm gonna arm them with rifles next.
I kind of remembered the gun, but what I don't remember is how it ended up in my world, if you will. Does that ring a bell at all?
Remember when we did the scenario in my D&D world? You played Malik. Remember that?
I remember. It was like a NPC. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But because remember when Jakara charged the group of soldiers with muskets and they just shot him to pieces, and he was like, "Fuck, I better respect that weapon."
See, this is the kind of stuff I don't remember. That's cool.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember because one of the essential non-player characters got left behind, and then there was a big controversy over that character reappearing later, and I was like, motherfucker, that fucker got left on my world, and you know it. You abandoned him and you forgot him and neglected him and abandoned him there, and when he was essential in the other world, you brought him back, and I was like, boo. We went back in your bedroom and had a discussion about it in the middle of the game because I threw a hissy fit. I remember that. I was like, you can't bring this guy back. This is bullshit. Yeah, I threw a hissy fit.
All right.
Like, get rid of that guy. I hated that character. It was Cheezel or somebody like Cheezel. Or something like that. That's all I remember.
But with a name like Cheezel, he probably should have been left behind.
I also remember some vital NPC getting run over by a juggernaut, and everybody's screaming.
That was Cheezel, and that was the first appearance of the juggernaut because it was in the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Yeah, it was in the dungeon module. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Cheers.
Cheers to you. I'm having hot chocolate, so we both have our drinks with us.
Potables.
You mentioned Aljar. I see Tony very rarely. His wife will sometimes come in and shop, and he's got a daughter that's the same age as my son. And he said he doesn't game anymore. He's gotten old, and like the rest of us.
What about Kenny?
Kenny's married and got 2 kids, and I don't know what he's up to. I see him online, but I don't think he games anymore either.
Like things I've posted before, and
Oh, okay. Okay.
Kenny was always a bubbly, happy fellow.
Yes.
Kenny giggle. Him and Wendell giggling was like one of the funniest things to hear.
Kenny played Ariakas.
What's his name? I tried to remember his name. The elf.
He played a homebrew class called a Saber Mage that somebody else had created, and I tweaked it to allow him to play it in my world. And the idea behind the Saber Mage, the idea behind the Saber Mage was somebody didn't like the fact that if you were a mage, you couldn't wear armor. So they just said, well, fuck it, then here's this new class where you can. And I was like, well, I want this to make sense, so I made it to where the sword that the fighter had runes on it, like a spell book. Yeah, and if you sharpened it with a stone that would slowly absorb magic from the wherever it was, whatever magic was around, it was like a slowly self-regenerating battery. And as he sharpened the blade, he would pick what spells he wanted to re-imbue, and they would kind of glow, and that was.
And he cast them through the sword.
Yeah, so then he would do these elaborate katas, and then usually it was Fireball, or that was one of his favorites. Of course, it's everybody's favorite.
Remember, he was one of the 3 when me, Brad, and Kenny lightning bolted Baron, what's his name, and Jakara at the same time and reduced him to hamburger. You remember that?
I do. Yes.
We all 3 cast lightning bolt. It was like, this is over right now. Boom!
Because what it was is Jakara was wrestling the bad guy, and you guys were like, get out of there, we're casting the spells. And he's like, nope, I'm not letting him go. And you all 3 went, I cast. And
we were like, this is over now.
Everybody took like 100 points of damage or something.
And took at least 18 d6 of lightning bolts.
So that was one of those moments that will live in infamy, for sure. That was. It makes me sad that I don't have any kind of recordings of those really, really old games.
Thank God, because it'd be incriminating. There'd be people fist fighting over that.
No, it's. I mean, there were certainly times when there was some disagreements.
We had some emotional moments. We had some emotional moments.
I would think that's partially why we game to begin with, is to experience vicariously things that we couldn't in real life. I mean, there's no way, even in our best of shape, most of us could have worn 40 pounds of plate and charged up a hill with a two-handed sword and, you know, or cast magic. I mean, let's get to the basic thing that we can't do that our characters can, and that's use the forces of the cosmos to alter reality.
Wear see the plate armor with a gigantic two-handed sword and see how much you can do in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
After 5 minutes, you'll be on the ground puking.
So you had several memorable characters. Normally, you
three primary characters.
Well, would you like to discuss any of them in any particular order? Because I personally would like to start with your first, which was Mud.
My first was Glom.
Well,
and
I don't hardly count. He lasted half a session. You and Wendell, may Wendell rest in peace, by the way. Wendell was playing...
Because I tried to toss his character in the bar.
Right, played a gnome
like 3
illusionist. Yeah, and you guys were in the bar in the very first session that I ran for you and John and Wendell. And Wendell's character's name was Farron. And so you guys were just yucking it up.
He was a goaty gnome.
Yes, somehow it got to the point where you were like, I will just throw this drink in your face. And he was like, don't do it. And you were like, splash. And I mean, I said, okay, roll the hit. And man, you rolled great and it went all over him. So he whipped out his sword and chopped you down right in the bar. And I was like,
3 points. 3 points killed me.
I mean, yeah, when you're a first level mage, you don't have a lot of wiggle room. So
but you see, that was me gauging Wendell as a gamer, and I am from that point on I respected him as a gamer because he wouldn't take no shit, even though he was one of the sneakiest little Baron. I am glad that he got eaten by the frost giant and that the rest of the group just walked away.
See, you remember that. I can't hardly remember that, but we'll hold that thought. Let's come back to that. So
hey, can you give me like 2 minutes?
Yeah, I can pause this. Hold on.
I just need to take a break just for 2 minutes. I need to go do something real quick.
Let me
you don't have to pause.
Pause.
There.
All right, we are back. Okay, so
Mud was the first big one. Mud,
so,
I made Mud as a direct because because the wizard just died. I was like, okay, I'm going to play the exact freaking opposite.
Yes, and back in those days,
started off, and Mud drank from a magic pool that made him dumb.
It did. But I remember that back in those days, this was a first edition barbarian, so part of his class feature was you get experience for destroying magic items, which in hindsight wasn't, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily the greatest design choice. It was certainly unique, but
they don't play them like that now.
In hindsight, you can see how that would be.
Conan said, "I don't like magic or magicians." It was a really dumb. Yeah, it wasn't the most brilliant choice.
But so you made Mud, and he was like one of the last of his tribe from out of the forest. Yes, of the Trilliac tribe. I remember that.
He could speak Brownie.
Yeah, that was like there was brownies and barbarians that were in that particular part of the forest. I mean, it's not necessarily the worst combination.
No, in fact, it was kind of neat. I thought it was fun.
And Mud, throughout his adventuring career, of course, he had his ups and downs, but I think he died and came back more than any other character, and I want to zero in on one specific resurrection, if you will, that I was able to surprise everyone No one knew this was coming, and it was.
Can I guess it?
Sure.
Exploding from an elf.
Yes. Yes, that was it.
I was going to say the other one was when Alajar found me in a giant fish on the beach, half digested by the giant fish. That was the other one I was going to go with.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when you're not so good at telling a story, you just kind of come up with ideas, and some of them, whether they were good or not, they were memorable. It's kind of like the worst play in a football game. It's like, well, that was dumb, but you never forget the game losing penalty. So in Mud's case, he came back at least 3 times.
Mud was the game losing penalty.
What was interesting is that as he came back each time, and this was me, I always thought that he came back a little less uncivilized until at some point when you hadn't played for a while and Mud went away, the next time he appeared in game, he was wearing fancy clothes and had a female valet.
That was Sneed.
You remember that?
Sneed was his handler. Remember, he had the handler named Sneed, who was evil.
Maybe it was just a girlfriend you had, or maybe just somebody that you.
I painted a figurine of Sneed.
Okay.
And Jim kept it.
Was it a girl?
No, it was a little man.
Okay.
He had the girlfriend too, but Sneed was his handler.
Okay. Was the figure one where the guy was like this and he had a sugar bowl haircut?
It was he was purple. His clothing was purple.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
After we used to use that figure, I used it for one of Sean's characters, the psionicist. He picked it out of the thing and said that'll work. And
I
then
wrote his name on the bottom of the base.
His legs broke off, and Sean was going to fix it, and he never brought it back. So that figure is.
Break that thing?
Well, I mean, it's made of metal, and who knows? There's any one of them
breaking their legs. The little kids twisting them off and see if they break.
Who knows? But that figure in itself had a long history. But that's for another story. Good memory. Yeah, I would have never remembered Sneed. Did you name him, or did I? Or what?
Yeah, I named him.
Okay. But you remember Mud arriving in a carriage and having the fancy shirt and.
Remember when he had the magical gem that gave him intelligence?
Yeah, and that was part of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember how he got that?
Huh?
Do you remember how he got that?
That I don't remember. I think it was just something he showed up with. The other thing I remember about Mud was his dinosaur skin bag with the gold bar in it that it would hit people with.
Yes.
Remember the Stegosaurus tail? And he would skim pieces of gold off the bar to pay for stuff. Otherwise, it was in his sack, and he would hit people over the head with it because it was like indestructible dinosaur skin bag or some crap.
I remember. I also at that time discovered the wonderful literary talents of Michael Moorcock and
one of my favorites,
the Eternal Champion. And so I started to call Mud this world's eternal champion because of how many times he came back. So it was he was a fun character, and he was very unpredictable.
He's still out there somewhere.
Well, in that time, sure. Currently, we're several years ahead.
He's on another plane.
Well, that's
true.
Another plane. That's true. Okay, so. Mud's fate.
I have a question for you then.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Of my 3 main characters that I played, Mud, Gaspar, and Morgul, which one did you like the most? Which one did you hate the most? And which one had the biggest memory for you?
Well, personally, a DM should be impartial and just be a judge. But if you were to hold a gun to my head, or make me save versus spells. Probably my favorite would have been Gaspar because of the amount of game-related things that you produce to go along with the character. I still have that. I still have my binder. I always appreciated the things that could flesh out a character more than just playing him or her. So I felt that that was one of those things where I was like, if I make a house rule where you get experience for making things, that should be a good reward for. I mean, some people would do it regardless because they're creative, but it was always nice to be recognized or rewarded for something. That was my opinion at the time, and I still hold that opinion. So
Absolutely.
for me, it would be Gaspar, and because Gaspar was adventuring, I think in when you were playing was when I was starting to mature as a DM and starting to figure out that you didn't have to hold on to the bad guys. They were there to be defeated. They weren't there to always escape. And I remember I got that idea because it was like Doritos. Remember the old commercial where it's, just eat it, we'll make more. And I remember telling myself, just let him kill the bad guy. There's another one that's just going to come up and take their place.
There's always another bad guy, yes.
Even though it was probably in some D&D book somewhere, I didn't sink in until then.
Krillo was always waving to us.
Yeah.
In the distance.
Him and his family, I always kind of...
How do I remember this crap? Krillo.
Well, I mean, they say that gaming like that, it creates false memories because it stimulates the same brain
It's not a
sections.
false memory. It's a memory of something that we talked about and did.
Yeah, I mean, so scientifically it makes sense, but in reality, it's like it felt real when you remember it. It feels more real when you talk about it afterwards than when you're living it. That's what it is. That's what they say anyway.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's a false memory, but anyway.
And my least favorite, and that's begrudging because he added a lot to the story while he was there.
Morgul had a plan.
Yeah, so it's hard to not like a character that moves the story forward in some direction.
He caused the most trouble. Morgul caused the most trouble.
He was definitely
contentious,
like a lawful evil warlord, and he was just lucky enough to hold his own. Now, here's what I don't remember. Now, Mud, he's still out there. His final demise was never.
Nope, he was off with Alidar. He was off with Alidar on the boat somewhere. That's the last thing that happened to Mud.
Gaspar's final demise, if I remember correctly. Well, let's wait on Gaspar. Morgul's final demise, I don't remember. Did he meet his end?
Magic missiled me to death. Percival magic missiled him to death, and he was trampled by horses, and that was the end of it. Nobody was going to come along and save him or resurrect him.
Was this one of those things where you had the chance to get out, but you stood your ground?
I was like, kill the bard, and all the knights were.
That sounds familiar.
And all the knights were like, kill the bard. What are you, stupid? and then he magic missiled me because I couldn't dodge him, even though I was surrounded by knights and stuff. His magic missiles hit me automatically.
So you must have been low enough to where it made the difference.
He could magic missiles do a lot of damage.
Well, I mean, at the most, they're going to do
wait,
25, right?
Gaspar magic missiled him too, after the fact. Because he just couldn't, he's like, Gaspar was just standing there doing nothing, and I was like, I have to kill Morgul with Gaspar because he's not just going to let this guy get away. Gaspar, so yeah, it was one of those
so
dual moments because, wait a minute, because Bart went off in the woods and killed Blade, which was Morgul's buddy.
Right.
Who was Bart's other character, who was
Brad.
other character.
Yeah.
Brad. Yeah. So it was a moment that was designed. It's like we have to kill these two characters, and we knew that they had to die because they weren't going to win at that point. I thought they might win for a moment, and they didn't.
Oh shit! Was that after?
That was the big battle.
Was that all started because, or was it just a side effect? Was it Blade and Morgul burned down Jakara's Inn, or am I thinking of different characters?
No. Morgul set that place on fire.
Because what I remember about it was that Brad's character was there for sure.
Fire because he tried to shoot Jakara with his gun and missed and almost hit Mino, and then he was I should have killed Jakara if Morgul had killed Jakara then. So much would have been different. So much Morgul would have won. And it was like there was my signal right there. I was like, Morgul's lost. It's over. So he set the palace on fire, and then he went to the Blue Bolt and set it on fire.
Well,
and set some warehouses on fire and just split.
Well, see, here's what I remember about the fire in the Blue Bolt Inn is that you wanted to start a fire in the room, but it wasn't necessarily to burn the inn down. And I said, so you're just going to leave the fire? And they said, yes. I said, well, roll a d20. And fucking somebody rolled an 18, and I was like, oh, fuck, the whole inn goes up. And everybody was just like, oh, no. Like, that was not the intent, I don't think. That's not the impression I got at that time. But sometimes the dice decide things, and there's nothing you can do about it. So there you go.
Let me make this comment on that. And this is something that John and I said for a long, long time about your D&D game. And this is not an insult. This is nothing of that sort. We always said that at times when role-playing was necessary, you called for a die roll. And at times when a die roll was necessary, you called for role-playing, and everything just went to hell. And we kind of enjoyed that.
That's not an insult. That's what is known as flying by the seat of your pants. So that's I think
like, we want to role play this out. And you were like, no, roll a die.
Any DM that sees this interview in the millennia to come would understand everything that you just said. Okay, so that was Morgul. We covered Mud and Morgul, and then Gaspar. Now, Gaspar, unlike the other two, Gaspar was a necromancer, and he wasn't just a plain mage that liked to do the dead stuff. He was back in second edition. You could be a specialist mage, and he picked necromancy, but he wasn't really evil. He was more like he was like a scientist type. He would collect specimens.
Life and death. Balance.
And people thought he was a little weird because he liked to play with dead things. Normally he wasn't a shit disturber. Normally, other than Jason having a little bit of shit disturber in all of his characters, because when you're young, man, it's fun to do. So,
Gaspar probably had his head together more than any of the other characters did.
Now, I know Gaspar, let's get this out of the way. I know that he died once, but did he come back after he died?
He died twice. The first time he died was in the Temple of Evil with Art and Percival.
And that's when
the second time Percival killed me.
Now, I might not... Okay, well, wait, hold on. Let's talk about the first time. The first time... For those of you that have played the Temple of Elemental Evil module, you get to a room pretty far down. The module was designed in a way that you could go straight down the middle to the harder levels, and that's what these guys did. That's what is called a design flaw. That's just my opinion. But they went down there, and then there was like a bunch of rocks on a ledge, and Percival just went and hit all of them.
Okay,
and
let me clarify.
Something slammed down and chopped your hand off, and then you all got sprayed with green slime, and everyone failed your save. So everyone died, but I don't remember how you came back, and I don't remember dying the second time.
At the same time, Jakara and at least 2 or 3 other people were fighting some giant monster, and they were holding off this monster while me and Percival and Bart tried to solve the thing. Yeah. But all I remember is that Jakar was the one that brought us back. That's all I remember. He saved our remains in a bag and brought us back because that's what we did with him after we blasted him in the hamburger.
Okay. All right. But
the exact way it happened, I do not remember.
And then Gaspar...
that's when Morgul came, because when Gaspar died, I made Morgul.
Right. But after Gaspar came back, he
was a lot more powerful.
He found an abandoned tower, or some was led to it, or something out of the desert of despair.
Morgul had that tower and had the big fight there with Jakara, remember?
But
now here's a moment of contention I must bring up.
Okay.
I must bring this up. There was a battle at the tower. The tower was under siege. Jakara was leading this charge at Morgul's tower, and I had it set up to where he was going to charge right into a bunch of people with halberds and pikes, and you stopped him. You told him, don't do that. You're going to get killed. And he would have rode right into it and just died. And you stopped him. And I was like, what are you doing?
I'm sorry I did that. I wouldn't do that now. So that shows that...
I remember that because I was like, you did, but I could have killed him so easy. Morgul got cheated numerous times.
I do remember. I have notes. I have notes of that in one of my notebooks. I remember that. I wrote that, and I remember writing the whole thing gets politically solved. Did Morgul end up marrying somebody out of that deal?
No. He got a spear from the priestess of Loki or something. No, I'm sorry, the sword. He got a magic sword from the priestess of Loki and died not long after. So, because he never used a sword. Morgul always used his halberd or his hand axes. He never used a sword.
Okay. But I remember Gaspar having the tower out in the desert of despair, and you made this nice map that looked like an old map.
It was Morgul's tower. I took over Morgul's tower, and then me and Bart teleported the whole tower to the desert of despair.
Okay, well that answers the question of how that could have been the same tower, because I always thought it couldn't be the same tower because one of them wasn't in the desert and one was. So you've answered a long-running question that I had about,
I just made it into a story that me and Bart took a year and planned it out and did this elaborate ritual and just teleported the whole shebang to the desert of despair.
Okay.
At that point, I think we're capable of that.
And that's something I will allow, is if a character's not going to be played for a while, or we need to figure out what they've been up to. If the players can make a story that's even remotely reasonable with some type of explanation, I usually allow it. And
I didn't think it was unreasonable. I thought it was actually it made sense.
Well, there you go. Okay,
and it didn't affect anything major. It didn't just move the power from one place to another.
And that's another thing, is how does it really affect, like, other characters? And if it doesn't, then I'm not really... It's fine, because you gotta get your source material from somewhere, and if someone's willing to...
It just makes Gaspar more mysterious.
Yeah. And then you did a sketch of the tower and its grounds, and I remember it was really cool because you came up with the idea of having in this desert kind of like a watery, lush perimeter with these frogs.
It was the oasis, yeah.
And you would have skeletons bang a gong, and that would cause the frogs to think it's dinner time, and that was how the alarm would be.
Also, they wore a little red hood, so that anybody who wore a red hood, the toads wouldn't attack them.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the skeletons, if you came along and you were not recognized, the skeletons would just bang the gong, and the toads would show up for dinner time. It was a maze.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on the World of Skell site that I have that's like forums, I've used that in part of a story that the mayor of Greyhawk goes and searches for Gaspar. So if you hadn't read that... Uh-oh, you froze up. Alright, well, I guess we'll pause while we find out what happened. Alright, we're back. I love being able to pause. Okay, so I don't know what you heard before you froze, but I said that I got some...
The story about the mayor, yeah.
So, if that interests you and you want to see what...
I read it already.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because you had the little goblin skeleton dancing around, telling him to follow, and then and he drank elven wine with me and discussed the things. Yes.
So Gaspar is still around. I can tell you.
Gaspar, You need to remember that Gaspar's an elf friend. Gaspar's the friend of the elves because of the forest that we restored. The forest. Yes, the Forest of Tears, or what was it?
Elven Sorrow.
The Elven Sorrow, and me and Brad were key in restoring that.
Yes, that's not even on my big map anymore. It's completely reforested. So, so we know that Gaspar is still around. Do you remember how Gaspar gained some extra longevity?
Yeah, well, I have a story that I want to send you about that. So, it's from the Desert of Despair. It's from the Desert of Despair. Yeah.
This was
I've learned from the Desert of Despair.
Well, there was a character, like a ghost hunter, that one of the players were running, and you encountered. He came and tried to take out Gaspar.
Magic jar. You're talking about people's bodies.
Yes. So
I don't do that anymore.
If you say so, but that's how you're still alive now, because this was a young guy, and you were like,
I know
good.
That. I told you my plan was to make a flesh golem and magic jar the flesh golem and live in the flesh golem's body. That's my plan.
Well, I think that's certainly possible. That would be fun.
Also, I have another thing I want to. Now, I don't know how many people are listening to this. Gaspar has a secret weapon. I'm going to tell you the story about it. He has an hourglass made from the sands of the Desert of Despair. If he breaks this hourglass, it causes a time stop for a good long time. But by the time that spell is over, he's dissipated into sand. So it's a last-ditch secret weapon.
Sure, that sounds cool.
But it's a powerful time stop. It's like a long time. It's like 10 minutes or something like that of time stop. But by the end of it, he's done. But by that time, I'll find a way to get out of it.
Enough to get your affairs in order at the very least.
It's like saving the world type thing. It's like in that last, if there's nothing left to do, he'll break that hourglass and he has 10 minutes to solve the problem without any interference.
Cool. Is this something you just made up, or was this something you kind of got an idea from something else, or?
I just thought about it, if having a magical hourglass that gives you an hour and you break it, you have an hour to live and nothing can stop you. You have an hour, time stops for an hour, and that's your hour to do something. So that was my idea.
So, you've been in Florida how long now?
Since the early 90s.
Long
Probably
time.
30 years.
In your time in Florida, how has the gaming been?
I've had some incredible gaming experiences here. I've met a couple of people that never role-played before, and I introduced them to it, and they were brilliant. One
It's
of them
always
was
nice
an
to...
old cracker hillbilly that he took to it like a duck to water. The other one was a friend of mine who had 3 young sons, quite young, and we all role-played together, and it was just absolute fun. Just screaming, hollering, great. And we took turns DMing and stuff like that, and his sons were some of the funniest role players, young kids. Because they already have an imagination, and they're all doing it.
Was this D&D, or did you continue to do other games?
One of the first big games I played down here role-playing was called Rifts. I don't even think they have Rifts anymore, and it was Rifts.
Long-time gamers would know what you're talking about. I've heard of it, but I never played it.
Yeah, a long time. It's a FASA game. Same people that did Robotech and stuff like that. But anyway, it was because the basis of Rift was you start off at a high level, and everything is just monstrously, grossly powerful. So you're playing on like almost a god level, and we had just ripping fun at that because you're playing superheroes and stuff like that. You're punching planets and things. We had great. You're getting into arm wrestling things with gods and things like that. It was lots of fun. So Rifts was fun, but I played a lot of D&D down here. I played a lot of Warhammer, which is a lot of tabletop war games and stuff, which I did a lot more down here than I ever did in Missouri. And I made money painting people's things. You know how I did the painting.
Yeah. Jason lived with me for a while, and in lieu of actual cash, he paid me with painted miniatures and I still have all of those to this day and still use them. So
I'm stunned. I would like to see some pictures because I'd like to promote them and say, "Hey, I used to paint this stuff." If you don't believe me.
I mean, I don't. I can't move this all the way over there, but if you notice, there's that case.
You got the
see that case, and it's just full of minis, and probably, like a quarter of them are ones you did, and then there's some I did, some Jim did, pre-painted ones you can of course get now.
I'm honored.
So
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, Morgul's in there, and Mud's in there, Gaspar's in there somewhere.
There's at least 2 mud characters that I painted.
Yeah.
Because there was one with normal mud, and then there was mud in full armor.
I mean, why on earth?
The Morgul character?
I got whatever. I haven't thrown anything away.
You still got the big rhinoceros?
Yes, but unfortunately during the last move, the barbarians that were hanging off the side got snapped off, so they're kind of sitting on the floor. But they're all but that rhinoceros is still there, and the green dragon, it's still there. Although once again, it's laying on the ground. It's not propped up because I've moved several times.
That green dragon was beautiful. Even in my personal opinion, I think that green dragon was beautiful.
I used that once in game, and it did what it needed to do. It served its purpose.
I haven't painted miniatures in decades.
Yeah.
The last it's still been years. The last things I painted as miniatures were German tanks and Roman soldiers. Somebody paid me to paint a Roman legion for them. So that was at least 20 years ago. So
right. And then how about currently? Are you do you have any gaming things going on, or nothing currently right now?
I just read.
For those of you that were watching this in the future, which would be everyone because I have to upload this, the United States and the world is going through a little bit of a sickness, if you will, COVID-37 or something like that. But anyway.
It gives you, one of the symptoms is itchy eyes, I'm sure.
Definitely. It's like, oh, I got the...
Don't touch your face.
Yeah, no.
Look,
we're doing the social distancing, and we've been playing through Messenger. So at some point, you and I have talked about you kind of guest appearing, and that is still a thing. If we get back to Greyhawk, you will definitely have to get. Although, well, you said you're normally off on Thursday nights, right?
I'm off Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday now.
Yeah,
because I work 4 days that are like 10, 12 hours.
If and when that happens, I'll have to try to find the old sheets. I'm sure I've got it in something somewhere, and I can send you.
Gaspar's an archmage or close to it, because he has a vast. I don't. Gaspar.
Yeah, why not?
Desert of Despair has made me very powerful, but only locally. Outside of the Desert of Despair, I'm just kind of like the same old Gaspar, and in fact, I'm kind of weak outside of the Desert. But inside the Desert of Despair, look out.
Well, they don't call it the Desert of Despair for nothing.
Also, it's all bone dust, and I'm a necromancer. I can make some stuff out of that bone dust now. You want me to summon up a bone golem or a bone storm or something like that?
Whatever, yeah. Okay. I'd like to wrap up this interview with you and say I appreciate you once again taking the time, cleaning yourself up a little bit. That's nice.
I combed my hair. Does that count?
That's good enough.
Whenever
you're in Florida and I'm in Missouri, and you can do whatever the fuck you want, and it doesn't matter.
I wish I was in Missouri sometimes, brother. I'll tell you that. I miss my hill. I miss my hills, and I miss the changing of the seasons.
Well, maybe the next hurricane that comes through, it'll pick you up and deposit you back in the center where we don't get that kind of shit.
The last two major hurricanes I was in just left me alone pretty much. So
Good.
I'm just gonna hope they leave me alone this time.
Yeah,
too.
totally. And let's hope that
Being in the middle of the state kind of helps because they're not quite as powerful when they get here. So.
Well, I mean, do they ever come in from the west?
Oh, we'll get them out of the Gulf, sure.
Okay, because I'm for sure they come up from the east, but
Gulf hurricanes rip up Mexico all the time.
okay.
Because I mean, yeah, I think one of the last hurricanes we had was in the Gulf. So.
All
Here, it just
right.
makes lots of rain and wind.
Speaking of rain and wind, Jason, I love you. I miss you. It's good to catch up.
I love you too, and this was great. I loved it. We should do this more often.
Well, if like I said, if and when we can get back to Greyhawk, I have a role in mind for you. Let's
also,
just leave it at that.
Can show up just about anywhere.
In case other players watch this now, don't give it away.
Okay,
Yeah.
other players. Gaspar is a powerful wizard. Ooh.
Pick out two.
Love you,
All
man.
right. I love you too, brother. Thank you. And roll them 20s.
All right. Tell Sean I said hello and anybody else who's relevant.
I will. Very good.
And irrelevant people too.
Peace.
Bye-bye.